The fur trade. Previously, we discussed you have what I want, I have what you want. Hey, let's work out a trade. Today, we're going to look at the fur trade as a business. A little bit on the American Indian side, a little bit more on the European side. The American Indians were really good at hunting and trapping. That's how they survived. They knew the land, they knew the animals, and they hunted the beaver even before they ever had contact with the French and the English.
Beavers are vegetarians. They gnaw through bark to eat the sugary layer underneath. Felling trees with your teeth takes great strength, skill, and patience. The beaver's incisors are strengthened with iron, which makes them orange. They grow continuously and even self-sharpen. The pond makes it easier to move around the heavy logs they need to build their dams. Out of the water, it's a struggle. Stones help weigh down the base. The whole family works together, carefully interlocking the timber. The young act as apprentice builders, learning the tricks of the trade.
How did the Ojibwe capture the beaver? I said, come on, boy, come here, come. Good boy. One way is that they could go to the lodge in the wintertime, make a hole, and just go ahead and spear and take the animals that way. Another way is to go find that lodge and kind of make a funnel. Take these sticks and go down through the ice and create this V coming out of the lodge area. And then take a stick and bang on the top of the lodge, scare them out, and then they go down and then create a hole right outside of that little funnel area. So you're forcing them to come out. When they come out of the hole,
pick up one of those rocks, get behind the boulder. In a few minutes, the man in black will come running around the bend. The minute his head is in view, hit it with the rock!
I was not a sportsman.
sorry, I just couldn't help it. Another way is just to observe the travel pattern of the beaver and, again, funnel them into a trap and trap them there, kind of like a live trap. On land, they would just continue to use the materials around them and create snares, or, in this case, here's a deadfall trap. Here's a deadfall trap that the Ojibwe would use in the woods for beaver or other smaller animals. You need 3 6 to 8 foot logs or big branches, about yay big, that go back. And you can see right here, here's one that goes back, here's another that goes back, the other side is just resting up against the ground, and here's the cross member that goes over, and the left side is on the ground. And then you have some other vertical sticks that are just holding everything in place. On top, you put a few branches over the top with a rock for some more weight. And then on the bottom here, you put another branch that acts as the bottom where the trap is going to come shut. Right here, there's a little twig holding up the branch, and another one that you're going to put the bait on right here, that when they grab this and they hit that trigger, everything here is going to fall. So this is going to be a deadfall. It uses gravity. It uses the potential energy on top that once this stick is removed, it falls. The animal will enter through the front, go for the bait, hit that, and then when this falls, it'll get the animal. There you have it, the Ojibwe deadfall trap. That was all pre-contact. That was before the French came, before the English came. But then once the trading started, metal traps. So metal traps did not entirely replace the natural resource type traps like the snares, the deadfall traps, but they certainly made it easier to get many, many more traps out there to get more animals, to get more pelts, and do more trading. I know that some of you are hunters and some of you are not. I don't know if you've ever done any trapping, but I grew up on a farm and I did do some trapping. We had a pocket gopher problem out in our hayfield, and it would creep on making these little mounds, and I needed to get rid of those. So get rid of them I did. I took the traps, put them down in the tunnel, took the chain, staked it to the top so they couldn't drag the trap into the tunnel. The idea with trapping is that you want to check your traps often. You don't want to have an animal that's injured and sitting there and suffering. The Ojibwe and the Dakota, they had the same thoughts. Check your traps often and remove the animal as quickly as you can. All right, let's talk about the business of trading. So, whenever you start a business, you really need to know what you want. Now, as far as the Europeans, the French and the English who came over here, they were looking for a profit. They were a business, they were trying to make money, and they knew that in Europe there was a big demand for those top hats, that those could be sold. But that was a different business. They were not making the top hats. They were trying to get the resources to sell to the people who were going to make the top hats. So they came over here looking for those beaver pelts or any other type of pelts, but beaver pelts specifically, so they could bring them back over to Europe, sell them, and that's where they're going to make their profit. So once you figure out what you want, now you got to figure out what the people that you want to trade with, what they want, so that you can come to some agreement. This is where we've seen that they're looking for anything that they could not make on their own that could make their lives easier. They, meaning the Dakota or the Ojibwe, a gun for hunting, a hatchet, the metal head, the kettles of either iron, tin, or brass, glass beads, something that was different than what they had, coloring. So all of this is something that they did not have on their own that could make their lives easier, that they wanted or that they needed. Now, some of these items they may not have known that they wanted because they didn't know that they existed. That's where advertising comes in. A business person says, wow, you're still boiling water in a birch bark container. Look what I have, a metal kettle. This is what you can do with that. So now that you know what this is, don't you want this much more than that? Let's work out a deal. Let's pull off a trade. Business usually says it takes money to make money. You need to invest something to get something back. You just want to make sure that whatever money you bring in is not less than the amount of money that you're spending to run the business. In the case of the fur trade, everything that you bring over to the United States, over to Minnesota to trade, you have to buy first. So in this case, a musket, a gun. So you have to buy that, and their cost might have been $11 at that time, but then they could have traded for anywhere from 6 to maybe 10 buffalo robes, depending on what type of deal they could get. Then as long as they could sell those buffalo robes for way more than what they paid for, they could make a profit. All right, let's look at some of these other costs that were adding up to make sure that they could make money, they could make a profit. Remember, the fur trade was a huge business. They would get items to trade from China, from India, from Africa, from other parts of the world, put it on a boat and ship it all the way over the ocean, across the ocean, into Minnesota. And then they would have to take all those pelts, put them back on a ship, and take them all the way back to Europe. That's a lot of money. That's a big cost. And if you're the fur trader and this is your business, you can't do all of this yourself. You have to hire somebody to sail the ship, to take care of the ship. You have to hire people to paddle the canoe, the voyageurs, to bring everything into the Minnesota area and get it back out of there again, because you can't do all that on your own. You have to hire people to help run your store, your trading post, the clerk. You need to be hiring people to do all of this work that you can't possibly do on your own. By the way, that little abbreviation there, et al., E-T space A-L period, that's an abbreviation. It's in Latin for meaning and others, and others. And some of the others that you might need to hire might be an interpreter, someone that could take your language, whether it be French or English, and translate into the language of the Ojibwe or the Dakota, and a guide. Unless you know how to get around Minnesota, Minnesota up there in the woods is just trees and trees and trees, and how do you know where you're going? So you need a guide to walk you to the different trading posts to save time and to make more trades and make more money. It's certainly easy at this point to wonder who could speak all these different languages and be the translator, to be the interpreter. Well, you think about some of these fur traders who married someone from the Ojibwe people or from the Dakota people, and then when they would have children, those children would grow up speaking multiple languages because their parents are speaking multiple languages. All these costs are adding up. Another cost would be, hey, you need to eat when you're working. You can't carry all that food from Europe for a whole year. So what you're going to do is when you're in Minnesota back there in the woods, you're going to try to buy or trade for some wild rice or some maple sugar or for some dried venison, deer meat, While another cost is the cost of gift giving. So within that culture, within the Dakota and the Ojibwe, they would give gifts. They have that generosity thing going within their culture. So as you'd come on in, you're trying to set that relationship up with them. You might give them some beads. You might give them some feathers. You might give them some of a fire striker, all right, as just a good symbol of friendship. That's not all that different than today. You might have some businesses that might give some tickets to a Vikings game or to a Twins game for a family. And it's just a time that they can talk business, and it shows trust. And hey, I gave you these tickets, maybe you'll buy something from me. Same deal was going on back then, but it is a cost of business. Of course, the pelts. Although we've already factored in that cost by paying in Europe for those trade goods and then bringing them over here so that we can distribute and do the trading. There's a big investment for these fur traders. And in today's dollars, we're looking at possibly $80,000 or $100,000 investments in what's in their trading post. And by the time they're trading that away and getting in the pelts, they'll bring pelts back to Europe and maybe sell those pelts for maybe twice that, for maybe a couple $100,000 worth. So there's a lot of profit to be made, but there are a lot of expenses that have to go into it first. So this is the fur trade between the American Indians and at first the French, and then the English, and then the Americans that were coming during westward expansion. Talk about those later. Hey, you have something that I want. I can get what you want and what you need. Let's pull this together. Let's work out some way to do a great trade and have it be good for both of us. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.